Welcome everyone. Let's get started. I just want to welcome everyone to our webinar today, rewiring manufacturing sales for today's buyers. Excited about this topic. Really looking forward to digging in with my friends here. And before we kind of do some introductions and get rolling here, I did want everybody, if you don't mind, jump into chat and please let us know where you're joining us from. Just love to
Yeah, love
know
that.
some of the locations where people are coming from.
Jesse, the last webinar you did, you had where you had people from
We had
Everywhere.
Ghana. We had
Ghana?
Ghana.
Ghana.
We had
Yeah.
Egypt. We had India. It can get
So,
crazy sometimes. We love
so
to
Yeah,
hear
let
that's
us
that.
always
know.
interesting to speak. And I speak multiple languages, so maybe I could adjust as I go through.
All right. We got Minneapolis is on the board.
Okay,
There
that's a
we go.
different language.
Yeah. Here we go.
They speak Twin Cities.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna add a little.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. So, well, as these keep coming in, um, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce everyone. Look at all these places. Awesome. A little Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I love Milwaukee. Love my times in Milwaukee. All right. Well, let me introduce who's going to be leading the webinar today. I'll go ahead and introduce myself first. Tab Norris. I am one of the co-founders of ASLAN. My role is VP of Sales. And really, for the last 30 years, I've been spending my time selling or working with manufacturing, sales, and sales leadership teams. So that's been a big part of my life. Also, my pleasure to introduce Jesse Rome, who's going to be here with us. He is our VP of Solutions, but he's so much more than that.
So much more.
I don't have time to go into all the greatness of Jesse Rome, but he is constantly in the field driving our solutions on the front line with spending a lot of time with manufacturing clients. And he's just a great resource or getting our finger on the pulse of what's happening in the world of manufacturing, of sales and sales leadership. Also have Tom Stanfill, the other co-founder and CEO. And when he's not doing his CEO thing, which is all the time, so I don't even know what I'm talking about, he is our content architect. So all the brilliance, if anybody likes Aslan's content, it comes out of this man's brain.
Oh,
So
you're too kind. It is a team effort, Tab. That's not true.
so anyway, really excited about getting to do this together as a team. We don't do this very often together, so
Yeah.
looking forward to our time. So Tom, I'm going to transition to you, and I was going to ask the question. So why do we need a unique webinar specifically for the world of manufacturing?
Manufacturing.
Yes. I
Yeah.
mean, what's your thought
You
around
know,
that?
as we've gotten to really focus more of our solutions aligned with different roles and different verticals, we recognize that manufacturing sales organizations have a very unique challenge.
Mm,
They have unique challenges. They also, which might even be more important, has a very unique culture. I mean, there's a lot of similarities when we look at all the manufacturing organizations we work with, whether they're selling through a channel or selling direct, or they sell direct, fulfill through the channel. The organizations and the culture and the DNA is very specific. There's a strong similarity. So we recognize that they need a different solution, right? They need a different solution. So that's really I think the genesis of this webinar, and we're excited. This is the first one we've ever done focused specifically on manufacturing. And right now, most of our work is with manufacturing organizations.
I know it really is. I mean, this is where we're spending our time, so it's
Hmm.
perfect timing for us to dive into this. Um, before we dig in, one other thing I just wanted to throw out to everyone is just a little housekeeping before we get started, Tom, is as we kind of are going through, I do want to encourage everyone to load up any questions that you have in chat. And what we'll do is we'll monitor that as we go through and we'll try to, respond as we go. So feel free to please get some questions in there so we don't miss those. So,
Beautiful.
all right.
Love that.
Love it. Yeah. Well, I'd love to answer questions as we go through versus try to save them all for the end,
Yeah.
but basically connect with you as we're going through the content. So I think the best place to start is just look at the big three challenges. I mean, if you type in ChatGPT, or if I look at all the research that we've done, there's lots of challenges, but we kind of boiled them down to the big three challenges based on our experience. Number one, selling the total portfolio. Now,
Mm.
this challenge could be due to the fact that you can't differentiate, right, some of your products. So it's seen as a commodity and you have difficulty differentiating it. So maybe there's a cheaper provider, or it could be that you sell hundreds of products. And so you basically respond to the stated need because you don't quite know how to sell everything on every call. It could be that, uh, you're struggling to just learn how to sell a solution. You're used to selling a product. Guys, am I missing anything related to selling a total portfolio? Is that?
No, yeah. I mean, I think this is huge. I
Mhm.
mean, what I'm seeing, and tell me if you guys are seeing the same thing, and love to hear from you in chat as well, are there's lots of acquisitions going on within
Yeah,
the world of manufacturing. So gobbling up. Now all of a sudden they've gone from 13 business units to 30 business units, and they all have different cultures and they all have different ways and they have different products, and reps are really comfortable with the product. And now all of a sudden they got five other things that they can offer. And it is definitely a
that is very
challenge.
common. They're
Common.
consolidating. So you used to sell one solution set or one aspect of the portfolio. Now you need to sell everything. So a lot
Yes.
of organizations used to be set up by reps representing certain products. Now they're supposed to represent all products, which is a lot of reason for that. And like you said, I've got my favorite product. I've got the
Yeah.
product that I'm most
Yeah,
aligned with, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Jesse, anything that you've
Yeah,
seen?
I think the favorite product is a real thing. Like I'm used to going in there talking about one thing. I always that's how I acquired that customer, and that's what that customer wants to talk to me about. But
Yeah,
now through either tariffs or through growth in my organization, like that's not the best route for me to keep talking about that
right,
product. I need to talk about all these other things. And so information overload, but I need to be able to ask the right questions to sell the entire
right.
portfolio.
Yeah, and it's so much more comfortable to stay talking about what either the customer wants to talk about or what my quote unquote friends want to talk about, which is I think of it as a lot of times we're working with our friends, or what I'm most connected to. So that's number one. Number two, complex and lengthy buying cycle. The number of stakeholders involved in decision making. And I think a lot of this has to do with the shift to virtual, because it's easier. People have shorter meetings, there's more people involved in meetings. And I think the complexity of winning an opportunity and trying to navigate all the players has gotten more difficult. And I think the last research that we published was 4+ decision makers in every deal, which is crazy,
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
which is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Totally
think
agree.
most people feel it. The last one, of the big three, is declining access to the right people, which kind of is connected to compounds problem number two, is declining access because of the availability of information, right?
Mhm.
And the amount of information, people are overwhelmed. 60 plus, this stat just kills me. 60 plus buyers say they actively avoid sellers.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's
But we're so nice. But we're so nice.
why?
I love
Why?
us.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, and I think that's because they buyers, I think that's a key word. We're going to talk a little bit about that and why we need to shift from buyers to decision makers. So, what's the solution? This is what we're going to talk about. This is our focus. For either, we really have two options if we're leading a manufacturing sales organization or a manufacturing company. We either got to have the most innovative products in every category,
Yeah.
right? That's cool. That's great. If you can do that, everybody wants your product, then, and there are companies out there that have built their organization, that's their go-to-market, right? We have the most innovative products, so less need for the ability for the sales rep to be the differentiator. But most manufacturing sales organizations are going to be successful by equipping the sales force to be the competitive advantage. How do we make sense out of all the options the decision maker has? What are they trying to accomplish? How can we get aligned with them? How can we help them navigate all the options and become a trusted partner? So that's what we're going to talk about. How do we do that? And we're going to talk about the three key drivers to helping you become, or helping your sales organization become, the competitive advantage. Like what we say, become a trusted partner, kind of move from relationship manager or rep who reps products to being a trusted partner. All
Excellent.
right. All right, let's dive in. For number one, the first thing we need to do is reframe their role. And I want to tell a funny story real quick. A friend of mine shared this story about his niece who was swimming for a swim team, right? She was on a swim team. She was 8 years old, something like that. And, she'd go to these meets and she would swim around and she'd look at people and she would have fun and she would talk and she'd have a great time. But every time she came in last place, every meet she came in last place. So next year comes up and they say, well, I'm assuming you probably don't want to, join the team again. She goes, what are you kidding me? I loved it. And they go, but you lost every race. And she goes, race? I thought it was a swim meet. She thought she was there to meet people. And so I was like, oh, it's a race. That's
You
a
crushed that.
objective. That's a true story.
I love
I
it.
was like, hey, how's everybody doing? Well, I sometimes think that's true. I don't sometimes. I think that's one of the most critical drivers to changing the performance of an organization is really redefining their role. One of the most recent manufacturing organizations I was working with doing ride-alongs with really smart, intelligent people. And I said, what is your role? And he said, my goal is that when the customer has questions, they will call me.
Is that it?
That's his role. That's what he said.
That's his role. In his mind.
I want to make sure that they lean on me. When they're not sure what to do, they call me and they lean on me. So good guy, very smart, successful, but that's a way he sees his role. We've got to reframe the role, and how we teach them what the role is and how we articulate it is key to driving change.
Yeah.
All right, let's dive into this, and then I want you guys to kind of chime in. Let's kind of set this up. I think this is the best way to help I'm going to call him account manager, but it could be an engineer, it could be account executive. Some people call them territory managers, but it's just basically people who live and die by their ability to defend and grow accounts, right? This is a good way to help them think about their role differently. Every division, department, company goes through a process to determine how they're going to invest and make decisions, right? And it follows this process. It's a very simple process, right? There's the planning stage. What is my desired destination and how am I going to get there, right? And that happens typically at the executive level, right? And then there's the determined needs based on that plan or strategy, right? Then what do I need? And then, do I need do I have internal solutions? What resources do I need? Then I assess all my options, and it could be internal, it could be external, it could be with the current vendors, it could be with new vendors. Then once I make those decisions, I start looking for providers, right? And that's where the buyers get more involved, right? They're out there looking and sourcing for solutions. And then they get to the implement measure, and this is where the executives get back involved. So this is a very simple way to kind of think about not the sales process, but the customer journey. So I think this is really critical to reorient. We're not talking about what we want to sell in our process. We're saying this is the process the customer goes through. So where would you, if you think about your sales organization, where do your reps enter the process? I'd love to see some chat answers on this.
Yeah.
But while we're capturing that, Tab, what have you seen? I have an answer to this. I don't think we talked about it, but I have an answer to this 100% of the time I've seen they come in at a certain stage. I want to see if you agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, I typically see evaluate providers right around there.
Yeah.
Who's the best provider? It's kind of down to we're evaluating who we need to work with. I mean, that's pretty typical. There is a question in chat you can see from Joe. He's saying his big challenge is CapEx approval. You can see that. And he said even lower dollar purchases are getting upper level scrutiny now.
Yeah.
So
that's
even,
yeah.
that is definitely a trend that is happening as well.
Well, and that's what I love about this process is because if you're entering in the process down here at the buyer level, you have zero influence and control over that. You're only responding to what's already been approved, right? So you've got to try to get something moving upstream. You've got to get something approved that's not been part of the planning or the strategy. It's impossible to do that. And this is where reps waste tons of time. And so what we want them to do, right, and the role that we want them to embrace is quit reacting to what the buyer says and working with the buyers, which I'm not saying we don't meet with the buyers. That's not part of the process. But our goal is to spend a majority of our time here, where
Yeah.
we earn a seat at the table, where we can shape the decision strategy, we can help get CapEx budgeted, right? And this is where we establish value because we can talk about how it's the payoff of helping them reach their desired destination. This also drives the solutions we want to sell because we're not talking about a product that the buyer wants. We're talking about how do we solve big business problems. And this is also where it gets really fun because at the buyer level, there's a lot of information available to them on through ChatGPT, OpenAI, et cetera. Right. But when up here, the decision makers, the executives, they need trusted partners. They need to make sense out of it. Jesse, is that aligned with what you're saying?
Totally. And I almost think of this as like an accordion process, if you get that word picture with me. Because the reality is we always want to start at the executive level, but sometimes through an RFP or some sort of inbound connection, we
Great
have
point.
to start at the buyer level. So we instinctually are like, we know we have to get to the executive level to establish a relationship, to establish the first sale, right? The first kind of big sale. So we go from buyer to executive. That makes sense. But then naturally, we kind of slide back down and the working relationship stays at the buyer level for years. But what we don't realize is if you want to stop just selling the 10% of portfolio that you have and you want to
Right.
start exposing them to the 90%, you got to get back to the accordion. You got to get back to the executive level. And so this kind of seesaw back and forth is important because
I
we're
love
not
that.
only going to be at the executive level, but you
Yeah.
need to know if you want to actually influence, you need to get back to it.
Yeah,
And
and another thing, Tom, if I may add, I totally agree
yeah,
with that.
please.
It's I think that a lot of times it's easy to not have the accordion going on. You got so much coming in at you at that lower level. It's easy just to stay there. And I love what Clifford said here. The best reps generate demand, not wait for it. If
Yeah, I
the
love
you
that.
account teams enter before it starts. So it's having that mindset. Even if you come in at this lower, at the evaluate provider stage, you're being proactive to try to be early whenever it is possible. Like you're constantly be proactive looking for that, not just being in this reactive mode. So totally.
And I love, I want to make a point related to totally agree with that, Tab. Um, and I want to make point too to the accordion idea. You can play the accordion if you establish that you're already at the executive level.
Correct.
Right. But if you kind of you operate at the buyer level and then you say, hey, I'm going to go around you and now move up the ladder, if you will, move
Mhm.
upstream. They're going to say, well, then you're potentially risking your relationship with your friends, and so that's why it's important to do the best you can to initially establish a relationship, either through some other connection that you have, other people in the organization, because there may be a lot of people serving them. Somehow we've got to establish a connection there so that the buyer knows that we can work together to help them be more so. Because the buyers wants one thing, right? They want to look good, right? They want to make good decisions. They want to show that they're adding value to the organization. And so if they believe that you're connected to the executive, right, and that you have the ability and the credibility at that level, then that helps you um, establish more credibility with them and a better relationship. And they're going to sponsor you. So
Yeah. Yeah.
beautiful. So this kind of the one thing I also want to say is I don't know if I said this earlier, but for us to be successful, right, we're basically becoming a trusted partner. And a trusted partners that operate at this level outperform their peers by 105%. That's what our research has said. So I just want to make sure that we see that there's a super payoff. Any other payoff, guys, that you see for are either keys to positioning this to the organization as we try to make the point of, hey, we got to shift your role to think of yourself as getting a seat at the table versus be working with the buyer.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. And you just look over all these years. I mean, the biggies are, and maybe they're pretty obvious, but it's just been proven time and time again. Number one, your close ratio is way up. You're part of the process from the very beginning. You build stronger relationships. We see this all in here. Number two, the deals are bigger.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting involved in much bigger. I mean, we just saw this with one of our clients over the last 3 years. Much bigger deals. Close ratios are greatly increasing, and those two things alone are
Yeah.
are major. It's just major
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah.
And I think
Deals are
that builds
bigger,
in.
close more.
And
Yeah,
the last thing that's big is just real impact, right? Like if you
yeah,
want to create real change and truly help at an organizational level, I think you gotta play upstream, because not only will all those kind of products and solutions, benefit their business, but the decision-making process is streamlined. So what would have taken 6 to 9 months through a buyer is now taking 3 months through the executive, and the impact is happening that much faster. So
Yeah.
instead of everything moving slow, you can streamline it by talking to the right people.
Yeah.
There's another reason too that this, I think, really resonates with a typical account manager, is because it's really about the customer, right? Typically, account managers, their values, they really want to serve. They want to help their customers. They love their products and solutions. They love their customers, their friends, typically. And so this isn't about how do we sell more, period. This is about how do we help the executives reach their desired destination? How can we partner with them and be a trusted partner, not just sell more solution? If you want to sell more solutions, start with the customer, right? If you want to know how to sell 100 products, 500 products, you start with what's happening at the customer level. And because you know what's happening, then you can go back to your portfolio and you can say, here's all the solutions we offer that will help you get to where you're going. Versus if I start with my products, which is intuitively probably not, I've never heard anybody communicate this, but if I start with my products, I'm like, I got to push products. Nobody wants to push products. How much time is it going to take to sell all those products? Versus if we start with the customer, that resonates and it gives us greater purpose.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at how do we do that, because if we agree that this is our role, we also now that requires us to elevate our capabilities, right? If we want to move from responding to stated needs at the buyer level to I've got to partner with the executive team or VPs or directors, whatever level that means to me personally, I've got to elevate my capabilities. And we're going to talk about three things. And we've talked about move upstream. That's going to be one of them. We're going to talk about we got to convert the unreceptive, because guess where the executive expects you to work, who the executive expects you to work with? The buyer. So a lot of times executives, and as you try to move upstream, they're not very receptive. Or even the people you're working with have been worked with for years are not receptive to talk about subjects that have been previously closed. And then we're going to talk about how to shift from product discovery to business discovery. So we're going to get real tactical. So let's look at the converting the unreceptive and where this rears its ugly head. So this is kind of a good way, or how most account managers, pre-sale, post-sale engineers, anybody that's working with account kind of thinks about their world, right? They have to defend accounts, right? These are the companies that they're really got high account share. Then they have to grow accounts. And then sometimes they're going to convert accounts, meaning the very low account share. They've got a little bit, but we think of it more as convert, right? And as I was working with a Fortune 100 manufacturer recently, this is how they describe the challenge that they have. Look, if we're on the right side of this, and we're with people working with organizations that have high account share, we're known for certain solutions, and everybody wants to work with us, and that's not a problem. But as we move right to the left, we run into a whole nother problem. Right, we have a whole nother challenge. We're running into this, what we call unreceptive problem. People are emotionally unreceptive, and that's a new challenge, because that's not a logical challenge. That's an emotional challenge, right? And here's the truth about when someone's unreceptive. This is one of the key things that we teach at ASLAN. So when someone's emotionally unreceptive, the more you try to persuade them, the more closed they become. So, right, if the subject's closed and you try to change that, it becomes more closed. If the door's closed and you try to change that, they become more closed. So if you fight with them and try to win the argument, that backfires. If you flee, right, that doesn't work either way, because you've lost the conversation. So what we have to learn to do is convert the unreceptive by shifting our mindset and learning to create what I call a fertile soil. So in other words, that people are receptive before we work on the quality of the message, which is our seed. And Tab, I think this is something that it's very counterintuitive, but account managers know this is true. They just don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, they love this. They love it because they're very conscious of not hurting the relationship. Most all of our manufacturing clients, these account managers have really good relationships with customers that are worth lots and lots of money.
Yeah.
And They do not want to offend anybody. They don't want to hurt anything within
They're
that
having
account.
dinner with them. They've met
Yes.
them. They've known them for 10 years.
And
They've,
now they get recommended to go talk to another person in the organization. They don't want to be pushy or they don't want to hurt. So they want to be proactive sometimes, but they don't want to do it in a way that's going to hurt the relationship. So they
right.
eat this up. They're like,
Yeah.
now that makes sense. I'm going to be about them. I'm going to release the pressure, like you said. I'm going to do this in a way that doesn't hurt the relationship.
And I think one of the ways that and this is a simple, and we've talked about a little bit about this, to convert the unreceptive is make sure that every stage of your process and every resource that you offer makes the customer the hero of the story.
Yeah.
Right. So at any time organization, I look at I look, what are you talking about? How are you talking about your products? Let me look at your sales process. How are you positioning your meetings? And if it's about you, it's about your solution. It's not about what's on the customer's whiteboard. If it's not about helping the customer make a decision, even how you ask questions. Are you asking questions to qualify the account, which is important, but is it positioned in a way that helps the customer figure out if they should make an investment? And if you just start looking at everything, the reason they're closed, by the way, they're emotionally closed, is because they're rejecting a sales call. They're not rejecting a solution, right? What have you seen, Tab, as a key to converting the unreceptive when you think about what we're teaching sellers to do, or that really
Um,
resonates with account managers?
Yeah, what resonates is when we kind of help them understand this is all about being other centered.
Yeah,
Like this is about, this is all about them, getting them to, and people know if you're about them or not, and they feel really comfortable about that, and just teaching them that skill and how to do that. And then the whole idea, like we've talked about, the releasing the pressure.
yeah,
That's the real game changer, isn't it? I mean, the drop the rope, if any of you guys, it's a key concept that we teach, that we release the pressure. This may or may not make sense. I just want to find out. Let's look at some options. They love it because that fits
yeah.
really well in the way they like to communicate.
And I think the biggest challenge that they have, I think I would say two challenges when they're either getting a meeting, right, or leading
Mm,
a customer into what I would call a difficult conversation. It's like this is sort of the subject's been closed. We've used a competitive product for 10 years and we never talk about it. Or you want to move upstream and get a meeting with, a decision maker that's probably closed, right? And so I think the two things that the Tab, you said it right, is one is what's the purpose of why you want to talk about it? Like what's the purpose? And the purpose needs to be what's important to them. And we always talk about this at ASLAN. You need to begin the sentence with because you, right? Because you, if you can begin the sentence with because you and make the purpose about helping and serving them, that makes me as account manager feel better because I'm communicating, articulating why. It's not about, hey, I need to talk to you about this product that they're telling me to sell. To, hey, I know that you're currently working on, and I want to see if we could talk about how I potentially could help you. And then when you talk about drop the rope, which is comes from the tug of war principle, where we're trying, instead of pull them to our position, we're dropping the rope and making them feel comfortable so that they can choose. We don't leave. We drop the rope and stay. It's not an excuse to exit the conversation, but we just ask permission. Are you open to talking about it? And if they say no, move on. Right?
it's okay.
It's okay. Yeah. But if we start with the other center purpose and we communicate, that's a really key to converting the unreceptive. The other thing I would say, Tab, is if you're moving upstream, a lot of times they think you belong at the buyer level, so they don't think you have the credibility to help. And so we've got to communicate that we know something that the decision maker doesn't about a better way to solve their problem. I call it disruptive truth.
Yeah.
So I think that's really key to converting the unreceptive.
Yeah. Totally agree. Totally agree.
All right, well, let's look at, did we lose Jesse?
Yeah, he had some technical problems, or he just wanted to go get a cup of coffee. I don't know. One of the two.
Well, it's the weekend before Labor Day, so he's.
He'll be back. He'll be back. Well, Tom, I really like the idea of, just kind of offering up some, like if you want to assess your organization, right?
Yeah,
How are we doing on this front? And just, I thought a good question to ask is, are you teaching the sellers to eliminate pressure?
yeah, I love
Is that
that.
something that they know how to do? I think that's a good assessment. I think another one is are they equipped to lead their friends into discussing formally closed subjects? You know,
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
as you assess your team, is that something they're comfortable with?
Yeah, and that's a good point, Tab. That one of the takeaways from this webinar is we'll share. We've developed some We're kind of talking through those questions and assessments, like you just mentioned, and we're mentioning a lot of these key points. But if people would like to kind of capture these are questions that will help them assess kind of their readiness to equip their team to uh, move upstream, convert the unreceptive, lead a business discovery, all the things we're going to be talking about today, then we'll definitely share that if we don't cover that in the webinar.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, so move upstream. Now we've kind of hit on some of this already, and we don't have a ton of time, obviously, in a webinar to cover all the content that we provide. But a couple of things that I think is critical to moving upstream is one is how do you position the meeting? We've touched on this a little bit, Tab.
Yeah.
Is I probably mentioned this, but the thing that we talk about assessing, if we want to move upstream, we've got to get really familiar with what's on the decision maker's whiteboard,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And I always like to think about it this way: if you want to meet with somebody, like they have a whiteboard in their office, right? So once you
Yep.
picture them in their office, there's a whiteboard. What's on it? And
Yep.
if you go, I don't know, they're not going to meet with you. It's going to sound something like, hey, we sell XYZ, or we have a new product, or we have a new campaign, or we want to, or we do a lot of work with your business, and I'm your account manager, and I wanted to just come by and meet you.
Yeah.
And they're going to be polite, and they might do a little PR meeting with you because of the work that you're doing with them, but
Mhm.
they're not engaged, right? So we've got to figure out what's on their whiteboard. That is the key to moving upstream.
Yeah.
Not, yes, we need to know our products and solutions, but we've got to figure out what's on their whiteboard. And that's how we begin the purpose of our call.
Yeah, I love Clifford in chat. He just said, moving upstream, practice extreme otherness.
Oh, I love that. I love
I mean,
that clip.
and that's really what it
Yeah.
is. It's like what's on their whiteboard. What is their deal? I have to tell a great story along these lines, Tom,
Okay.
of an organization, big manufacturer. Everybody know the name, and they were incredible products, and they were known for their products. They still are known for their products, and they wanted to move into more of a. They had developed some solutions, and they thought, well, this is great. We're already in all these great organizations. We now have this solution. It'll be all so simple. Our account manager just talk about the solution, and we'll sell it. And they
Yeah,
found
because that's
quickly,
that's a problem. Information. They need information.
right. And then they were like, well, okay. They realized, well, we got to go upstream. We got to start talking to executives. Well, no big deal. They love us. So they had no problem getting meetings with the executive team
Because of who they were.
because of who they were. They walk in there and they sit down and they start talking about products, or they just talk like they always talk. And
Right.
and they politely are just sent along to go talk to the buyers again. And they're like, whatever. And we ended up coming in and working with that organization to teach them how to have executive conversations.
I
And
love it.
it's what you're talking about. It's like we got to get connected to the whiteboard. We had to teach them that. And guess what we had to do? It was really powerful. We taught them the dashboard of these executives. All the executives they were going to meet with, they needed to be other centered. He needed to have extreme otherness, right?
I
Where
love that.
they had
Extreme otherness.
to
Yeah.
they had to become connected to the major issues outside of their products and solutions. And when they did that, it was phenomenal. All of a sudden, they stayed in the office and they continued to offer bigger solutions and really do amazing things.
I
So
love
it's
that.
a
I
great
love it.
story of what you're talking about, Tom.
That's a great example, Tab, and it shocks them, right? And first of all, you'll
Yeah.
get 100% of the attention if you show them. I always like to say, if you show them a picture of them, they'll look at it 100% of the time,
Yeah.
right? That's very other centered. Like
Yeah.
here's what's happening in your organization. Now that doesn't mean they're going to meet with you, but at least it gets their attention. There's other things that we need to communicate to be able to get meetings and move upstream. Like what do we offer that's unique? Why are we different than whatever else um, they can. What are the solutions that they are potentially looking at? like we said, we talked about disruptive truth. One of the ways too, I think that we'll mention it before we move on, sponsorship is key,
Oh yeah.
right? But you've got to give your sponsor and so what's a sponsor? A sponsor is an influencer who's connected to the decision maker that you want to reach. They're aligned with you. They want you to win, and they also are connected to the decision maker. So that's your sponsor. So if you think about people that you know in the organization, regardless of title, that are connected to the decision maker,
Yeah.
but you've got to give them the why. Like, here's your purpose, which again is about what's on their whiteboard, and that'll tell them how to position the meeting to the decision maker, and then they can sponsor you, which I think is that's the easiest, less friction way
Yeah.
to get meetings, but it's not always available to us.
Yeah.
Either way,
Well, I
we've
will
got to
say,
come up with our
yeah.
position.
Yeah. But in this world of manufacturing, I think it is easier to do that, to get
Yeah.
sponsored because we have such good relationships typically. So that's good.
So let's move on to the third elevated capability, which I think this is where it all comes down to this really. When you think about the capabilities of being able to sell the total portfolio,
Yeah.
is we've got to, if we're having product level discussions, right? We might be able to get a meeting. We might even be able to convert the unreceptive. But if we're having product level discussions and we don't know how to discover what's happening holistically in the organization, we're going to fail. So I love this framework that we've developed about how to lead a different level of discovery. And so when we started working with manufacturers, and account managers, Tab, it was probably 1990. I think we started developing this model in 98 potentially.
Yep. Yep.
Maybe 2000. I can't remember. It was a long time ago, because what we were seeing is when reps were having an account manager mindset, they would start with product and that's it. And it was always stated, here's what I want to talk about. And to this day, when I work with manufacturing sellers for manufacturing organizations, they talk about what the customer wants to talk about, which is the product that they're most known for or most interested in, which is fine. Right. And so if we start there, that's great. But we've got to move from product level conversations to maybe related product conversation to what are the other projects they're working on to what's the total customer opportunity. And back to Jesse's point about the accordion, I think we need to be able to go top down or bottom up. Right.
Yep.
And so I love to think about it as you need a product discovery roadmap and you need an account roadmap. And if you can be versatile and be able to work on what's happening at the account level and what's happening at the quote unquote project level, you're going to be able to uncover the total opportunity. And that information will help you determine what to recommend.
Yeah. Yep. Totally. Something that I learned through this process is, and this is just for anybody out there who's kind of wants to move in this direction. Don't be afraid to baby step.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I remember this was a long time ago, and I came in and it was like, okay, we got to jump all the way up totals. And if just people had never even gone past, I just take orders for people that need stuff, And so we just said, hey, wherever you are in this roadmap, just go up a level, challenge yourself to go up a level. Because some people are already 3 levels in, they needed to go total solution. Others were just baby stepping. And I just like, hey, just ask 2 questions, maybe around other opportunities. And I remember, I know you were there. We sat with this one organization and they said, you don't understand. I've got two clients. We know everything about everything. Tab, just get out of my face. You're wasting my time. And I said, I know I'm an idiot. Just humor me. I'm here for a few days. Will you just ask these 2 questions just for 3 days and see? And remember, it was like millions of dollars of new opportunities that were discovered. It was just dumb. It was crazy.
I think wasn't it 10 million?
It was about $10 million of opportunities. It was
3 questions.
Yeah, like 2 or 3 questions with people that they already were talking to. It was just crazy.
Oh, well, actually, we
Love
do.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that point, Tab, that if you're having conversations at the product level based on you're just responding, move up a level.
Yes.
And baby step it.
Yeah.
And if you do that, and also, hey, if you have the opportunity to start at the business level, do your best to kind of ask them what's happening. I mean, it's just a whiteboard conversation. Where are
Yeah.
you trying to go? What's your plan to get there? Any pain or challenges in getting there? And that's your, and
Yeah.
just start.
Yeah.
And I will
Just do
tell you, if
something.
you ask more questions about what's happening in the customer world, even if you're uncomfortable, just ask a couple every time. Add it
Yeah.
to your portfolio of questions.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do, and sorry, I've had some internet issues there, is like, how do you make your way up while asking these questions? And a
Okay.
lot of times, if you ask some of these business level questions, the buyer or manager will say, I don't know that. And you'll say, exactly why I need to talk to the executive, right?
Yeah.
And
Or
so
who does?
if you ask level 2 questions, but you're operating at the buyer level and it's hard for you to make it to another
Mhm.
level, asking higher level questions, or like Clifford said, solution level questions, will help
Mhm.
them say, I don't really handle that. You should talk to this person. So
Yeah.
just remember that it's hard to ask to go talk to somebody sometimes, but if you ask a high level question, they might send you there themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
And why is it so difficult? Because I was in I was in a call with Disney with a rep that sold analytical equipment to the parks, which obviously they got to make sure they got clean air. This was back in COVID days. And you're talking to the chief security officer, or
Yeah.
maybe it was the CIO. I can't remember, but it was like a high level person. And so they were very connected to their product. They were calling them about these products that probably needed to be renewed. And then, but then the CTO started talking about what was happening throughout the park, and it was like it didn't matter because wasn't related to that one product. Why is it difficult for the reps to move from the products that they typically or the purpose of the calls to talk about XYZ product to then expand that conversation?
I think they want to be product experts. And so if they don't feel confident in a certain area, then they tend to avoid it. But I think
I
if the
think that's
mindset is I'm just here to help them, then they would mask their fear of giving the wrong product information for their excitement to learn more and create that passion into how can I
right.
help? And so I think that's got to be the flip of the mindset of I'm here to serve and I'm here to help. And so however that figures itself out to be, I'll do that. I'm here to present one product. And if this turns into more products, I'll come back to you with that information. That's the worst
Right.
case.
Yeah.
But hunt for that. Yeah, because ultimately it's about serving, right?
Yes.
They're trying, what are they trying to accomplish? What are they struggling with? How can I help? Versus I only do one thing. I don't really care about all the stuff you've got going on with the parks. I just want to sell these 4 products, right? That's ultimately self-centered. I don't think that's how the rep thinks about it because I don't think that's their motive, but that's actually what happens. Tab, you want to chime in?
No, no,
Okay.
I'm just agreeing. Good stuff. Love it. I
Guess
was
any thoughts about before we move on how to customize? This is obviously sort of a big picture
Yeah,
framework that we teach on how to drive discovery in an account. But
yeah,
any best practices on how to develop an
it
organization's?
yeah, it's hard, right? And I think there's two different. You can customize it by role and you can customize it by product and you can customize it, in a lot of different ways. But I think you have to find a few common threads between all those products and between all those roles. And so whether that is like goals or that is like, hey, pain points, or that is, hey, decision-making process, like what are the threads? What are the key objectives that we want across all these different roles and across all these different levels? Great. Now that we have those key objectives, now let's get really specific and customize what the different questions are for each of these different roles and levels. So don't think of it as some scary matrix. Just think broadly. What are the 3 to 4 categories or objectives, such as goals and pain points, decision-making process, budget, timeline, whatever your categories are. And then it gets highly customized from there.
Yeah, I so agree with that. And it's what actually works because if I'm in a meeting and I have all these objectives and then multiple questions for every objective based on every category, I can't look at that.
Yeah, no,
Right. But if I just have real clear objectives for this, if I'm meeting with an executive or director level person, and my goal is to uncover these 4 things related to this potential need, I can look at my notes as they're talking and as I'm taking notes, and so that's what you have to do. I do
totally.
like preparing questions in advance so that I've thought through how to position those questions. But once I'm in the meeting, all I can really refer to is my objectives. All right, let's shift gears a little bit. We've talked about sort of the three most important capabilities to develop: the advanced capabilities, convert the unreceptive, move upstream, shift from product discovery to business discovery. Let's talk about kind of the process of how do we drive change? How do we focus on leaders, process, and tools to drive change?
Mm.
Great.
Uh, and so Jesse, I think you want to unpack this.
Yeah, absolutely. And so change management is hard, right? And business transformation is hard. And so you can't just like tell people, hey, start asking great questions and expect everything to change. Like that is the ignite that will create little wins. But a year later, will they keep asking questions? Probably not, right? And so we need to make sure that we have an entire transformation process that puts the customer first. So you can go ahead and click the next transition. So it goes from prepare to ignite to transform. Prepare is all about how do you prepare any sort of change, any sort of rollout, any sort of training. Ignite is all about the actual moment where you shift their mindset and give them the new content. And transform is all about sustainment. And so we have really been working with how do you leverage AI at each one of these stages. And we really feel like we've mastered or on the way to mastering this process. And so before you roll out any sort of change, you need to get the buy-in of sales. You need to get their buy-in that this was made with them, not for them, but with them, and it's in their best interest. And so doing some sort of assessment, and whether that's in the field or that's actually leveraging AI through call analytics and through just like all of the different CRM notes that you have, like how can you leverage AI and actually leverage real data to figure out what's going on a capability level, how well are they performing, where are their gaps, and where is their opportunities. And so involving them there, involving them in some sort of pre-work to get them engaged, then it gets to ignite. This is supposed to be the most fun part, all right? So you have to have fun here. Do not make training boring. Don't just send an LMS SCORM file and say, watch this video and take the test. Like if you don't make learning fun, it's a chore. None of us liked the compliance HR videos that we had to take every single month or every single year. Like that is what you have to do. This is what they should want to do. And so embrace is all about getting them to experience this and getting them bought in about this as an idea and about the why. Experience is all about like actually having some sort of like, what does it look like in my world? Like what does good look like? And how can I do that specific to my business? And then execute is some sort of practice. You cannot just stick people in front of a screen and test them. You need to do some role plays. You need to do some exercises. There needs to be some conversation of best practices. So you can, using AI, you can gamify that experience. You can have AI role plays. You can ensure that you actually are using some of these tools to build different proposals, build different RFPs. There's a lot of different technology out there, and we encourage you to incorporate tools at each stage. But transforms where the magic happens. Like this is where the magic happens. This is where we find the most satisfaction because we actually see the real change. Adult learning says that you will forget 90% of what you learn the next week if you don't follow up and reinforce it. And so we need to make sure that they comprehend it, right? With some sort of knowledge checks. We need to make sure that they apply it with some sort of practice, and role playing can be uncomfortable. So how can you incorporate tools that help your team practice it using AI, creating personas, streamlining work streams where you're trying to come up with new discover roadmaps. We can, again, leverage technology to help you do that. And then mastery. This is where leaders come in. I know that was at the beginning of the slide here. We need leaders to be certified, leaders to create and institutionalize a coaching culture, and leaders to have a level of accountability, not because corporate's telling them to, because they want to. And so a lot of things to unpack there, but real change happens one-to-one. And without the leaders really being involved during prepare and transform, I don't think any of this will stick.
Yep.
I think leaders should go first. I mean, it's almost like train the leaders, certify the leaders, then train the sales organization. So if you've got a gap, start there.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Jesse,
Amazing.
how are you using, I know we've developed our own AI tools, but how has that helped you in the assessment process? Like, are we using, I think you're starting to use ASLAN Plus, which is our AI sales enablement tool, in both the prepare stage and the ignite stage. It's obvious where it fits to me in the transform stage, but you've had some success building it in early and throughout the workshop.
Yeah, let's just play with the example of I want to understand what the sales organization is doing and what good sounds like and what's going on. So I might go on a couple field observations. Well, those people are all buttoned up during that and they've prepared all their notes and everything's looking amazing, right? But how can we leverage AI to see what the day-to-day really looks like instead of just running focus
And
groups? And
measure
so
capabilities.
yeah, and actually have like real tracking, right? And so having some of these different video calls and having some of this different conversational intelligence, we can quantify what level they are at by capability and start to move them towards, or one, benchmark where they're at, but really diagnose like not is what is the gap that they think, but what is the gap that we see, right, from data. And
Right.
that has
You've
been
got to observe. If you really want to do an assessment, you got to observe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and AI can multiply that, right? They can scale it.
Mm.
You can only observe a few people per week, especially as your workforce is spread out. And so finding different technology to help you do that in a safe way, compliant way, in a way that makes your team comfortable is really driving impact.
Awesome. Um, One of the things that I wanted to bring up that I see specifically for manufacturers related to this flow here is when we get into Ignite, um, that what can happen is that they're dual objective. Teach them to sell all the things we've just been talking about and teach them the products. The
Mm.
problem is if you try to teach them the products, they're not going to learn the capabilities. So I always want to share best practices of like pick one or two solutions and focus on developing the capabilities around one or two solutions. It's not a time to say, here's all the 500 products that we offer or the 10 products that we're rolling out. And it's more about product training. It's because the focus is either about developing the capabilities or developing or creating or bridging a knowledge gap. And it's you can do a little bit of that, but you've got to decide what's the priority.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that's
Definitely.
great.
Um, so talk a little bit about Jesse, the coaching cadence. Like I was obviously, you know, I was in a meeting with you recently, and you got really passionate about building a coaching culture and developing coaching cadence. How do organizations do that, or what does that look like when people move from where? And maybe a better place to start before you answer that question is what do you mean by coaching? Because a lot of
Yeah.
people coaching is a
Yeah.
conversation, right? And I think they coach, right? It's like, hey, we coach. We're with our people. But first of all, let's define coaching. What is coaching?
Yeah, I think there's kind of three buckets people put it into. One is like, well, I give feedback to them, I make them better, right? So that's kind of the reactive way that people view coaching. A lot of other people think of it as like pipeline dives or like call coaching. Like, well, I talk to my people and I help them acquire new business and I help them through hard problems, right? So nobody's denying that those are valuable exercises that you should do.
Yeah.
But when we talk about coaching, we talk about skill development and career development that is not specific to an account. And so, how are you taking proactive time? That 1 hour you have free every single week? Who are you deciding to work with? One of your detractors or one of your strivers, right? Somebody that really wants to get better. And so, how can we institutionalize a coaching culture? Takes commitment from all levels, but it also takes accountability. And so, well, the way other organizations have done it is they are creating what is like a quota for themselves. Like I will go out and do at least one field observation a week. I will go out and at least have one, observation form filled out. I will submit at least one coaching activity. And that way you're being held accountable as a leader. And then that territory manager or account executive is being held accountable to the development of that coaching activity. And so how that accountability goes up all the way, right, to career development and to compensation and to things like President's Club and performance plans, like that's a decision as it moves up the ladder. But the point is, if we do not institutionalize a coaching culture, then it's just the flavor of the week and it's
Mhm.
just hugs and high fives. You're doing great. Next time, do this little tweak. And so we really
Yeah.
want to dig in and find ways to proactively grow their skill set and not just
Mhm.
reactively help them with calls.
Yeah, and
It-
I
it-
would just like to say this in all of the years, if we were to go back and say, you look at all, think of it, just go manufacturing. our clients that crushed it. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
completely crushed it.
Well, we know the numbers, Tab.
We do know the numbers. You're going to
Yeah.
tell them in just a minute. And wouldn't you say all the ones that fall on that sheet, this is what they did? It wasn't like we're going to go teach some workshops and we're going to do whatever. It was, we built a culture of change. We built a culture of development of our team, and we created this place where you're going to always get better and strive to get better. So,
Love it. Yeah, if you remember, we to make that point, we often will compare an organization that coaches within, to an organization that doesn't inside the
mhm.
same company. It's like you got a control group, they're going to coach, right? And they're compared to another group that doesn't coach, same group, same team, and consistently the organization that coaches outperforms the other organization by 44%.
Yeah,
It's
stat.
just, and we don't even measure engagement.
Yeah,
I
we
think
just
it's really important too to when you talk about the thing you said is skill develop coaching activity, right? Skill development requires practice. Now,
mm,
practice takes time, but that's one of the biggest barriers to coaching, which is one of the things that AI can help us solve with is it can help augment that and help automate that. But you can't get better at skills. You can transfer knowledge, but you can't get better at skills without practice.
Mhm.
And selling, a lot of selling is about skills, right? It's about developing these capabilities. And so that requires practice. So I think that's what we mean. And that is not going to happen. I can say this with pretty almost 100% certainty based on our experience. It's not going to happen unless senior leadership is involved in what's going to happen in the prepare stage. If they're involved and they say, this is what's going to happen, this is what has to happen for us to move the needle,
mhm.
this is what our organization is going to need to do. Are you bought into this? Will you support this? Will you drive this cadence? Will you drive this culture? Then it'll happen. But if they're left out of the beginning of the initiative, I don't know if I've ever seen it happen.
Yep, yep, that's true.
Totally.
Beautiful. Well, before
Well,
we close this out, let's see if we have any questions that we didn't
yeah,
address.
yeah. I see here. I was looking at. We got some AI. A couple of AI comments using AI to prep, kind of in advance, looking at some competitive trends and things like that. In the age of AI, teaching speeds and feeds, facts, effort. How to sell is what most folks need. And that's
Yeah.
what we're finding. That's what I'll just say this about, our tool, our ASLAN Plus, our tool, our enablement tool. What we're finding is managers are going, I'm still coaching. I'm going to continue to coach, but I'm twice as effective in half the time. I mean,
Mm.
it's a staggering deal because it's just a tool that helps us be more efficient. So,
Yeah. I'll often say it's ASLAN Plus, or AI, however you want to think about it, solves the number one barrier to coaching, which is managers don't coach.
right.
Because
They
it
don't coach
just
enough. There's no
they don't,
doubt about
yeah. I
that.
mean, well, they coach in the way that Jesse described it,
Yeah.
right? Deal coaching, account coaching. They give feedback, or they'll say, "Watch me." It's a lot of sort of show and tell. Again, I did the same thing. It's just hard because it takes practice, and practice takes time, and it's also just it takes a lot of patience. But AI is hell is. I'm still blown away by how AI has been able to replicate that process and save the coaches so much time.
Mhm.
Hey,
Mhm.
we are out of time. I want to make sure we wrap up. We got about 30 seconds. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us.
Have a
Hope you,
great Labor Day weekend.
yes, let's just start now.
It's just,
And
yeah.
thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Oh,
Thanks,
and before
everybody.
we close off, yeah. So if anybody wants to reach out to us, and let me go to this last slide. Glad you said that, Tab. Anybody, love for you all to reach out to us on LinkedIn. Love to connect with you. And if anybody wants the slides and more information that we shared about these capabilities and best practices, happy to do that. Let us know.
Amazing. Amazing. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks.
Looking
Thank
forward to
you.
staying connected. Yep.